got the bedding and I stretch before I wash my face. This a vibe, about to take him to another place. And she said I'm Superman to a Lois Lane. Side again, no wise enough, they need to clear the way. You gotta go, but to achieve it, you gon' need some faith. I'm trying to reach
Episode 38 of Off the Bench is now live. Wherever you may listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watching us on YouTube. As always, this episode is presented by Diplomacy Clothing. Negotiate with style with Diplomacy Clothing. It is pay me season. Get your shirts.
Like and subscribe in the next 5 seconds, or your favorite video game will be canceled.
Oh, I wouldn't risk it.
You gotta subscribe to the podcast. You gotta buy Diplomacy Clothing pay me shirts.
Yes.
It's pay me season. James even says it. Your favorite video game will be canceled if you don't buy Diplomacy Clothing. Roll. A lot has changed in the past couple of months. We haven't talked NBA in a bit. And the NBA is back. And it's different.
It is back.
It's different mostly because my Knicks, for the first time, have no hope. My former Knicks. Because my Miami Heat now have a chance to win the championship.
Down, George.
But it's a very we haven't discussed the whole bubble plan and how everything is. We pretty much let things play out until the ball has been tipped, and now scrimmages have been playing. And I'm going to tell you one thing: I love the setup.
You're a fan?
It looks like it's NBA 2K brought to life with all the different. It's 2K. It's my park in Orlando. It's my park, where everyone has their own specific courts. They have their own specific little logo for the teams, and you don't even have to be playing for the Pacers to play on the Pacers court. You just got to go there and make sure it's empty. Except it's real life, so there's no loading or buffering time when you meet up with your boys. There's no, oh wait, you got to back out because not all of us checked into this court. But
okay, fair.
And despite J.R. Smith's live Instagram feed of the food that was provided to him, which I'm starting to believe he just got the bad end of the stick, as it were.
I'm sure.
Because he was
came late, sir. You don't get top of the notch food.
He was definitely one of the last few people that were just signed because of the Lakers having so many players not show up to Orlando because of COVID and wanting to stay with their families.
Yeah.
So, yeah, LeBron gets that A1 steak sauce, and J.R. Smith has to have that Velveeta cheese.
LeBron over there eating New York strips, man. Let me tell you.
But I like the whole plan that they had. So far, they said the most recent testing showed that no NBA player has tested positive for coronavirus, which is
great sign.
Great sign. And we're going to have, and the NBA TV is already showing off all the scrimmages, which is great. Which also reminds me of, wow, Joakim Noah actually plays for the Grizzlies. I had no idea he played for the Grizzlies. I forgot he was even in the league.
Well, he just got back in the league. He just got back
in, right. But then you look at scrimmages like Denver, and the Denver Nuggets put out a lineup.
5 bigs, man.
5 bigs. Jokic, the Joker, who I saw live. He's playing point guard. And Bobo.
Yeah, then you got Bobo playing small forward.
I never thought I wanted to see that. But
until you've seen it. And then you're like,
Daryl Morey even sent out a tweet.
I didn't see it.
With his mind blown. So, well, I guess you could do that. It's a thought. And I always thought, I always wanted to have all bigs play, but then the transition would be so difficult. But if
I'm about to say, it slows down your transition game, that's for sure.
But Joker says, no, I can transition well on both sides, sir.
Well, yeah, he's one of the few, Denver's one of the few teams who have that many skilled bigs that can actually pull that off. And now, do we expect to see that in the playoffs? Hell no.
Oh, no.
But was it cool to watch? Yeah. And do I think that they could possibly use Bol in like a power forward, small forward kind of role, like really tall guy? Yeah, I think it's possible because he has the skill set of a forward. If you look at it, George, like he's a tall guy, but he has some form of a handle to him and a jump shot, which is technically all you need to play small forward these days, anyway. You don't need much of anything else.
Yeah, and Bobo and Joker were both taken in the second round. So Denver knows how to draft these bigs. They've been finding diamonds in the rough when other teams are still searching for a big. I go back to them again, like the Knicks. They're drafted Mitchell Robinson in the second round, but they have no idea how to use him. He should have been starting along with guys like Joker, but he's still up riding the bench for whatever reason. But just looking at some of the scrimmages that have been going on, it's refreshing to see the NBA back. But when looking at the players that showed up, like the Lakers, Avery Bradley decided not to travel with the team.
Yeah, he's not traveling, but his reason was understandable.
And most of the reasons, I want to say 90% of the reasons, at least, are reasonable.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'll never knock him in for not wanting to show up due to his family.
But the fact of the matter is, this isn't the cohesive team that started this season. We were expecting Avery Bradley to fill in that J.R. Smith role. And with most of these players gone, it brings a different dynamic to how these playoffs will turn out.
Yeah, when we did our predictions earlier in the year, George, that was all assuming that, all the teams remain nearly the same.
Mm-hmm.
The Clippers had changed, the Lakers had changed. Even your Miami Heat, who may not have added anybody, look different than what they did to start the season. Their grit and grind is a little bit stronger than what they were before. The Rockets now look like actual title contenders. When early in the year it was like, you didn't think much of anything. But it's weird because I remember when they traded away Clint Capella, there was this big deal made about it. Like, oh my gosh, they're going to run a lineup just like PJ Tucker at center. Do I think it will work? No, I still don't think it'll make them title contenders. But does it make their shot at outscoring their teams that much greater? For sure.
I'm just going to read off the teams because this is the first time we're talking about the whole restart. So the Eastern Conference is 1 through 8, as per usual. Celtics, Nets, Pacers, Heat, Bucks, Magic, Sixers, Raptors. But the Wizards were invited back in. Now, the rule that they place is that if you're within 6 games.
Yeah, I believe it was 6 games.
If you're within 6 games of the 8th seed.
If you was mathematically still not eliminated, I believe.
Yeah, so you get invited in to Orlando. And the Wizards, surprisingly, after their tumultuous season, I guess is the right word, they've been invited back because they're about 5.5 games back from the 8th seed. So the East is just, at this point, about reshuffling 1 through 8, whereas the West is 1 through 8 from Denver, Mavericks, the Rockets, Clippers, Lakers, Grizzlies, Pelicans, Thunder, Blazers, Kings, Spurs, Jazz, and Suns. Now, that's not in no particular order, but it's interesting that the West has it just speaks more to what's been pretty much going on the past decade and a half, where the West is so much more competitive,
more stacked,
than the East, and the fact that the Trailblazers still have a chance, and Damian Lillard mentioned how he doesn't want to restart unless the Trailblazers have a chance. And Melo's there in Orlando, so they have a chance to make it. But looking at the West, it's so tough to even decide or choose on who can represent the Western Conference. It's easy to go to your Clippers, your Lakers, but if Zion makes it as an 8th seed, that's a whole different game.
Yeah, I agree with you, George, and the fact that the West is has been for the last what seems to be 10 years now, right? The West has always just been a very competitive conference. So many teams. They usually go about 9, 10 deep. And then you mentioned like the Blazers, like the Grizzlies, the Spurs, the Blazers, the Pelicans. Really, those 4 teams I would probably lump together, as in like either one of them make it, but then they can lose it, and not because they're bad teams, but just because the West is so competitive. I always said, like, if the Blazers were in the East, they'll be like the 2nd seed. like that. And there's no disrespect to the East, but the East is just not as deep and competitive as the West is. There's a lot of teams who are barely 500 in the West because they're playing teams like the Lakers, the Clippers, the Mavs, the Rockets, and they know each other also well. It's always competitive, but it's hard to if you ask me to put money on who I believe will make the 8, will be tough because at any given moment, if Zion comes back and the Pelicans become real interesting, because Brandon Ingram, even after the game last night, you seen him, he picked up basically where he left off. I think he's easily the most improved player this year. I've seen some people saying that like people are like Luka and like people who are already good, and they pick their numbers up, but like Brandon Ingram before this year was almost considered to be a bust. It was to the point where people were like, Brandon Ingram is never going to like become that guy. And I can't remember his numbers off the top of my head right now, but I know he's averaging pretty decent amount of points, assists. He handles the ball for the Pelicans, getting better rebounding and defensively. So you pair him with Zion, with Drew Holiday, another 2-way player, they have a chance to make some noise there. I don't foresee them getting out of the first round. So they'll end up playing a team like the Lakers or the Clippers or something where it'll be competitive, but they won't win. Kind of thing.
And just looking at the standings right now, the Grizzlies hold on to the
8th spot right now.
Final
Yes.
spot at 32-33, and Trailblazers are right behind them, 3.5 games back. So are the Pelicans that you mentioned. The Kings are also still alive, and the Spurs, despite their struggles, they can still make a run. But really, I mean, you mentioned it, like Brandon Ingram, he's come back, he's come alive. Josh Hart has come alive in New Orleans. And the thing about that New Orleans teams is that everyone's healthy right now, and specifically Zion is healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
So that team can really make a run, and it'd be a shame for the Grizzlies not to make the playoffs because Ja Morant is a beast.
Has a really great
beast as a
rookie year,
guard, and he really uplifted Jaren Jackson, even who was Zach Randolph's heir apparent when he got drafted, and pretty much was the reason Zach Randolph was let go. And just looking at the rest of the standings, I mean, the Suns can make a run. Well, even though in 8 games, it's highly doubtful that they would make that kind of a run.
They basically have to win out, essentially.
And the Spurs, I mean, they're 4 games back, but you never know what's going on with Pop.
A little more doable than 8 games, a little bit more doable, but still, we'll have to make a crazy run.
But as far as the West, everyone's pretty much coming back with most of their team intact.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mavericks have Porzingis and Luka.
I think the Mavericks have a good chance, George. I'm not going to make a hot take like you normally do. But if you would have told me that the Mavs, if the Mavs play spoiler to the Clippers or Lakers, not crazy to think that, but if you was to tell me that would happen, I honestly wouldn't be so shocked. Because Luka is averaging 29, 9, and 9. The man's insanely talented. You mentioned everybody at this point in time is basically coming back healthy. So the Mavs will be healthy. Tim Hardaway, I don't know if you as a Knicks fan been paying attention to him, but he's having a really nice campaign for the Mavericks this year. He's looking great. We know JJ Barea is a solid veteran who will come in, he'll play solid minutes. Give Luka that moment to, be off ball, sit down, take it easy. He'll keep the ship afloat. And I think everyone will agree, the key is Kristaps Porzingis.
Yes.
If he is healthy, the Mavs can literally beat any team in the West. Literally can. Because as great as we believe Anthony Davis is, Kristaps Porzingis on the defensive side can negate a lot of the stuff that Anthony Davis would want to do.
Well, so far this year, he's averaging 19 points per game and 9.5 rebounds per game.
Yeah.
So he's having a really good bounce back year after getting traded. Well, demanding the trade out of New York. And Hardaway Jr. was also involved in that trade. I mean, it's the old Knicks are making noise in Dallas, and they could pull off upset. Right now, the projected matchup is against the Clippers, so that would be a huge upset. The first year of Kawhi and PG together to get upset by Luca and Kristaps.
Yeah, I mean, if obviously I know it's not gonna happen, but like there will be people in the Clippers office campaigning for them to split that up already. There will be people campaigning for that because nobody would expect Luca and Porzingis to beat the Clippers. Now, tell me this, George. If say again, not saying it's gonna happen, but tell me if the Clippers go out there and lose to the Mavericks, do the Mavericks say they lose again in 6 to the Lakers? All right, competitive loss, they lose to the Lakers. Do the Mavericks come back next year with all that experience that they have under each other? We're playing with each other. Do they come back as almost Western Conference favorite?
They could.
You will have to mention them because they beat the Clippers. And then if they ride the Lakers out to 6 games, it's not like they got rolled over by any stretch of the imagination. Another year older for LeBron James, another year for Luka and Porzingis together.
And this would technically be LeBron's, I believe, last year on his contract with the Lakers.
With the Lakers, I believe.
I think he signed a 4-year deal with the 4th year being a player option.
Yes, I believe so. It's either this year or next year.
So really, LeBron's on the clock to win a championship. If he went, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't win one this year, and doesn't win one next year, or win one next year. That is, he would be out of LA.
Right?
I would believe so. I mean, he did what he wanted to do. He won a championship in LA, and I would believe it more so that.
Well, do you think he retires, or do you think he?
No, I think he moves on to a different challenge in a different city.
All right.
Maybe. Who knows?
I never heard anyone speculate that. Everyone just needs to be. It kind of to be like a written thing right now that LeBron will finish his career in LA, but. It's possible.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't win a championship then this year or the next, he's definitely going to resign. I'm saying if he wins a championship,
if he wins
this
one,
year
lose one,
or next
kind of thing,
then I think he'll look out and see what else can I do.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I can agree with that.
Because if he wins this year, asterisks or not, he still won in LA a championship.
Yeah, I mean, and I hate that asterisk thing. I really do. Because if the Lakers win, they were the best team in the West all season long.
Mm-hmm.
No fluke. They were going into the playoffs regardless, favorites to win the title. I can only understand the asterisk if, like, a team like Mavericks won. Like a team you didn't expect to win.
LeBron when he was with the Heat.
Yeah, I mean, people call that asterisk because they're like, "Oh my God, he had Wade and Bosh in their prime. Of course, he won championship." But you don't see nobody throwing away the fact that Kevin Durant got titles and he joined the loaded Warrior team.
Yeah. So I mean, it is what it is. But that's just my speculation off topic. But who do you think
care
in
to
the
give us
West?
a prediction?
Who do you think in the West is going to get that last 8th seed?
The last 8th seed. It would be a shame if Memphis did not hold on to win it, to make the 8th seed because it'd be like, man, like really great year to lose out. I don't think the Pelicans are going to go on that run. Everyone thinks they will. I don't think they will. The Kings, no threat. The Spurs, I don't think are any threat either. It'll have to be between Portland and Memphis.
Why not the Suns, man? I mean, Devin Booker, he wants to win.
They're not winning 8 games in a row. I'm sorry. Sorry for any Phoenix fans out there, but it's just not going to happen.
See, I'm going with Portland because not only because Carmelo Anthony is one of my favorite forwards all time in my lifetime, but because they're just, I feel like they're hungrier for it. Damian
I'm gonna
Lillard wants to qualify and make some noise. Now that would be
I'm gonna
something.
take Memphis.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna take Memphis because I just believe the now here's the argument behind that. You look at Phoenix, I mean not Phoenix, you look at Portland and you're like, man, they kind of benefited really well out of this because they gave their chance for the older players like Carmelo Anthony to wrestle, get healthy, all that. But I just think Ja Morant at the end of the day will be the difference maker for Memphis, and I think he'll will them in. I don't think they'll do much once they get in, but I think they'll will them in.
So far, our picks are the 8-9 seed. Now the rules, you pick Grizzlies, and I pick Portland to qualify for the 8 seed. But the rules now, if you're within 3 games, which Portland kind of is, of the 8 seed, there's a best of, I believe, 3.
It's the best of 3, I believe.
Best of 3 series to determine who gets that last 8 seed.
And then that only
if you finish within 3 games of the 8 seed.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I could have sworn that rule was something like if the 8 seed won, then there was no other game.
If the 8 seed won just a single game, then there's no other game.
Yeah.
The 9 seed has to win 2 games in a row.
Essentially.
Basically. So, Grizzlies, Trailblazers. Trailblazers has to win 2 games in a row. Grizzlies is have to win 1.
It's definitely doable. Because we know how cool Dame Lillard is. He's a cool dude.
Who are you taking? It's your pick against my pick. Best of 3. But Portland.
I'll take Memphis. I'll take Memphis.
You're taking Memphis? See, I just think Lillard, especially with Melo on that team, he's been dying to go.
It's cold, man. I'm doing this kind of like on my gut.
Mm-hmm.
All my senses are telling me take Portland, because I know what Dame Lillard is. I know what Dame Lillard is in the playoffs. I know how clutch Carmelo Anthony can be. I know CJ can get buckets. I know all that stuff. I'm just. It's just kind of something telling me Ja Morant and those boys won't be denied, and I think they'll get in. I think they'll win that first game. I think that first game that they will win that 3-game series. In that 3-game series, they will win, and Portland won't make it out of there.
That's bold. That's bold.
It's a kind of critique I probably ever made.
I'm a fan of watching NBA, seeing an NBA game, and seeing Carmelo Anthony box someone out. And having one of those famous Melo rebounds. Especially now that there's no fans. And every single microphone can pick everything up.
I was watching something earlier, and Rachel Nichols, the ESPN broadcaster, journalist, was talking about how she was at the game, and you could hear guys going back and forth at each other. Which you imagine, I always said it's probably like playing street ball. You imagine they're playing street ball, because there's all the sounds and no people getting in the way. It's just you and your man. Like Melo's made for this, Oh yeah. Melo on the block, telling someone you can't guard me, you can't check me, you can't check.
I'm expecting to see Melo back in his
catch him with the
days.
triple threat and just hit that patent it.
See, and I could tell. I don't know about the younger players, but especially a lot of the veterans, they're going to treat this like a game on Dykeman.
Yeah.
This is going to be because before all this pandemic stuff happened, around this time of year, you would see guys like Steve Nash, Kyrie, even Melo would come to New York City and go to different parks, go to Rutgers Park, they would go to Dykeman, and they just play ball, and it'd be just like what they're doing right now, except without a fan base.
Just ball up.
And really, the only reason there's a fan base at those street pickup games is because, well, they're NBA players. Everyone knows who you are.
Yeah, you're tuning in. You're tuning in, for sure.
So, I mean, I'm excited that NBA is back. I'm excited that we're having this concept come in. I kind of hope that this 8 versus 9 seed to get into the playoffs sticks around for future seasons. Because that would be amazing, because then there's no complaints about it. You can start the mid rounds, the 4 versus 5, 3 versus 6, and then have 1 through 8. Give the first seed like just a first couple days
First
of
round bye
buys,
almost.
first round bye almost, while the 8 seed is being determined, and then the other teams have to play their first game while the 8 and
Do
9
you
seed
think that
hasn't
will lead
played.
to too much of a layoff for the other teams, though? Like, like if hypothetically, if we do it that way, the Lakers, they have a little layoff to wait for the AC to be determined. But meanwhile, all the other teams are playing. So once the other teams finish playing their series, we're talking about it could possibly be a week difference between the Lakers playing, whoever the heck they will have to line up against on the second round. No?
Could be. I mean, they're happy to schedule. They're happy
Yeah.
the whole thing
Yeah,
schedule.
for sure.
But it's just a cool idea that I think should stick around, especially with the Eastern Conference. I mean,
As
the
your
Western
title
Conference.
predictions
I'm sorry,
change?
the Western Conference, not the Eastern Conference. Because I was gonna
As your
say
title
that
prediction change?
Ooh.
Now that we had all this layover, everyone
Now I
seems to be
picked the
healthy.
Clippers to win, and you picked the Lakers to become champs. I mean, the Clippers are still, for the most part, they're still fully intact. I think. Lou
Yeah.
Williams is still he's still showing up in Orlando. I don't think he opted out, but you know what? Yeah, I'm sticking with my pick with the Clippers.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna. I almost want to change from the Lakers because knowing that no Avery Bradley on it. I know Avery Bradley doesn't seem to be a big deal when a lot of people think Avery Bradley. They're like, oh, so what? Avery Bradley not playing. You can replace him, but being in the starting lineup, he was the Lakers' late time crunch lineup included Avery Bradley. So you can't take a guy who would have been playing during crunch time out of the lineup and think it doesn't hurt their team a little bit. He's way more better on the defensive side than J.R. Smith, who they replaced him with. And shot making wise, it's probably about equal, you would probably say, right? And not much of a difference.
No,
So, I mean, you would have preferred to have Avery Bradley than J.R. Smith. And knowing that the Clippers added a lot of depth at that point guard position, they can now throw Pat Beverly, who's not with the team right now, but is planning on returning. Shuppet, Reggie Jackson, and then obviously you got Kawhi and Paul George who handle the ball too. So they got a lot of ball handlers. Lou Williams. They have a lot of people who can handle the ball on their team, take a lot of stress off of each other. When it comes to the Lakers, no Rondo because he got injured. Avery Bradley, we just mentioned, ain't participating. J.R. Smith has never been a ball handler.
It's going to be a LeBron point. It's going to be a point.
It puts a lot more pressure on LeBron,
mm-hmm.
And it puts a lot more pressure on their shooters. I think Kyle Kuzma is going to have to step up into a bigger role now. He's going to have to play a bigger part than what he would have had to beforehand. He's actually going to have to be that kind of like shining third star. If Kyle Kuzma can go out there and be a guy who averages at least a solid 16 to 18 points a night on efficient shooting, it actually decides to play some type of defense, I think then I would give them a chance against the Clippers. But I think that you're asking too much of LeBron at his current age to not only handle the ball, bring the ball up, make all the right reads, and then play defense on Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in a 7-game series. You'd just be asking too much of that.
Now, I know Kyle Kuzma's name has been brought up in trades before this year's trade deadline. If Kyle Kuzma lays an egg, he doesn't end up stepping up. He doesn't end up playing as defense.
He's out of there.
Is he out of there?
Yeah, I believe so. It will be hard. It will be hard to sell LeBron on Kyle Kuzma if he goes out there and just plays the game. Like, what you gonna tell him? Oh, he'll step up next time. LeBron don't got next time. He's like we said, his career, as much as it seems to be shocking at this point because he doesn't seem to be slowing down a little bit. It is coming to an end at some point in time. He wants to optimize the amount of years he has, and Kyle Kuzma doesn't step up. I feel like Kyle Kuzma this is a false isn't playing for his Laker job.
Mhm.
You know, like it's show up or you're out kind of thing with them. And I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have the capability to do it. You know, but some people just can't play under the spotlight of LeBron James. You know, we're seeing his strength of many people. You know, we'll see. But I think he's out if he leaves the Lakers here.
Gotcha. Well, some of our picks are staying intact. What do you
Yeah.
guys think? Are your picks staying the same or are they changing? Do you agree with our
Milwaukee
picks?
is a viable championship, but it's not.
Let us know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube as well, and subscribe to Apple Podcasts and Spotify so you can listen to us while you're driving, in the gym, working out, whatever you're doing, in whatever state you're listening to. Thank you so much for listening and supporting, guys. We will catch you guys next time.